Children from hard places need parents who feel equipped to help them heal and grow no matter what. That takes preparation, education, support, and the services families need when they need them. In partnership with 8 sites, the National Quality Improvement Center for Adoption and Guardianship Support and Preservation tested promising practices and evidence-based models of support and intervention along a continuum. 8 interventions in 5 intervals, each focusing on a different level of risk. Together, the intervals represent the needs a family may encounter along the lifelong journey of adoption or guardianship. Texas selected focused services for its intervention. Introducing Pathways to Permanence 2, Parenting Children Who Have Experienced Trauma and Loss. This is Texas, the Lone Star State, where adoption professionals and the families they serve have discovered a new pathway to forever.
Our intervention in Texas is Pathways to Permanence 2, Parenting Children Who've Experienced Trauma and Loss. It is a 7-session course for caregivers who are actively parenting children that are moving towards adoption and/or guardianship. We are in the focused service interval, which is the pre-finalization phase.
Focused services are intended to address the emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs of children, and to prepare families to meet the needs of the children both pre- and post-permanence.
We were looking for something progressive and something that would allow someone to feel empowered to move forward towards finalization and adoption. We went through a very extensive process. We had an intervention selection team that we used.
We met as a team. It was my staff, it was stakeholders, it was part of the QIC team. We really went through a theory of change to define what we wanted to work on and what barriers did we see.
It all coming back to trauma, grief, and loss. What we found was that we needed to be better at preparing families in dealing with trauma, grief, and loss. And that to effectuate change, we needed an intervention that could support them through that process.
Pathways to Permanence 2 was really the best fit because it focused on trauma, grief, and loss. It focused on not making the behaviors and emotional needs of our children their fault. It focused more on equipping the families.
This is an intervention that the state really is excited about, and they wanted it purposely for this population.
We're basically trying to figure out if the intervention Pathways to Permanence 2 increases the likelihood that we can move kids out of foster care and into permanent home.
Pathways to Permanence 2 comes from California, from Kinship Center. They're the ones who developed it. They've provided extensive technical assistance. They came to Texas and trained our facilitators.
Because I put Attachment 101 into my presentation.
Traditional parenting depends on attachment and relationships. And children who've experienced trauma and loss are usually not terribly trusting of adults and have a difficult time establishing new relationships, and certainly have a difficult time establishing attachment. So what we're trying to do is help parents modify their parenting so that they're really getting attuned to what the child's needs are and not reacting to the behaviors.
In the summer of 2015, my then 14-year-old granddaughter made an outcry of sexual abuse. And as part of that, she and her 2 younger siblings were removed from their home by CPS and placed with me. It turned my world upside down, and it turned those 3 kids' world upside down.
Monte's daughter, the mother of her grandchildren, stood by the abuser.
But I was really struggling because of the trauma that was going on with the family. Things weren't normal anymore. Things were not like they used to be. These kids were traumatized. They'd been through horrible things. You can't just love this away for them.
Monte was among the families invited to participate in the Pathways to Permanence 2 trial.
So I see a letter and I'm thinking, oh man, what are they going to want me to do now? But as I looked at it and started reading about it, it caught my eye immediately. I knew there had to be some better way to deal with the children than the way I was I was trying to raise them like I raised my kids back in the 70s. It doesn't work. So I was open to more information. I knew I needed something that worked. And I was hopeful from the beginning that this class would offer that to me, and it did.
Robert and Sandy Coy built their family through adoption. First came Andrew, adopted 10 years ago at 12. Next, Lily and Noah, a sister and brother adopted at 8 and 10. And the newest family members, another sibling group, Marcus, 9, and Samuel, 7.
We had it all wrong, honestly. And we thought, I'm gonna go into this adoption, this kid is gonna be so grateful because they just want a family and we want a kid. We adopted Andrew. He was our first adoption. He was 12 years old. He did not like moms. Everything that I did was wrong. Everything.
Better one of mine.
7 years later, the Coys became foster parents to Lily and Noah, with the intention to once again adopt.
First week that we got Lily and Noah, and they were placed in our home, about 3 days later was Robert's birthday. We were swimming and barbecue, we were having fun. That was the first time we met the other side of Lily.
So in a time span of 5 years, these kids had moved to 10 different placements. Not always together. When I received the case, the kids weren't together. For various reasons. If you go back and look why all the placements changed, it says because of child behavior. The caregivers no longer wanted the children in the home for whatever reason.
She screamed and screamed and screamed, and then that is when we found out that she could make her nose bleed on demand. So there was this screaming child with blood running down her face, screaming, "You're hurting me," and we were nowhere near her. We weren't prepared for that.
You could see that they were really sweet kids, but they did have, just these deep layers of trauma, and they didn't know how to deal with it. And what I was finding was these caregivers didn't know how to deal with it either.
I used to cry. I used to cry a lot, and I would say to Robert when we were away from the kids, I don't know if I can do this. And it broke my heart because I did not want to be one of those parents that returned a child. I didn't want to be that. But it crossed our minds.
I was scared. I was scared of failing these children.
But right about when we were going through, oh my gosh, did we bite off more than we can chew? Are we the right parents for these kids? Is when the Pathways to Permanence class came in.
A lot of our parents coming in that are just at the end of their rope. They're not enjoying their kids. They love their kids, but they can't enjoy them, and they're too exhausted to do anything else.
I was a little apprehensive at first. I didn't really know what to expect, but I was desperate for knowledge, and I've always found out that information helps. One of the first things that the facilitators told us is that they're going to give us some tools that we can use to deal with kids who've been traumatized. And I'm like, tools? I need those. I've got kids who've been traumatized. I'm in the right place.
I received a letter in the mail from my caseworker saying, here's a class, Pathways to Permanence. And I looked at it, I scanned it over, and I just kind of put it off to the side because I didn't want to take another class. What made me take interest in it is when my caseworker said to me, I need you to trust me. Please give it a shot. I went into that first class, and an hour into it, I think it was a 3-hour class, I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, wow. The biggest takeaway that I had from that class was the 10 things I need from you every day. From the child's perspective, I need you to listen to me. I need to be touched every day so that I know that you have affection for me. I need to be claimed by you. Let me see. And who are you?
For you to gain a child, there was a loss somewhere.
One of my favorite parts of the curriculum is the 7 core issues. It shows loss as the hub of the adoption experience, which gives families a really deep understanding of where kids' behavior is coming from a lens of loss.
Another big component of the curriculum is what we call developmental buckets. So we have 5 buckets that represent developmental stages.
And it's our job as parents to fill these buckets with sensory-rich experiences. What do I mean by sensory-rich experiences?
It was sort of fascinating to me to try to come up with ways to, well, how can I fill these buckets? What can I do?
So I like session 3. I love when we go over the stages of development and what you should expect at each stage of development.
That really brings things home to the participants to see, oh, they're acting like a 5-year-old. Let me parent to that 5-year-old that didn't get what they needed at that stage of development.
Parent to the stage, not the age.
Yeah. I like session 4 that talks about some of the science behind it, the limbic system, the emotional responses, and you just kind of, you know, do your hand models of the brain where I flipped my lid and I'm back to my thinking brain.
Session 5. By 5, and we're now talking about really creating those positive attachments and the things that we're going to really reinforce in the home, I start seeing more of the aha.
And then they also talked about the birth parent conversation, and which was something that Rob and I had stayed and shied away from during our first adoption. We felt like it would bring up bad things if we talked about the birth parents, so we never did.
You know, we thought we were protecting them by not giving them all the information. And it's not.
This class was telling me, you know, you need to talk about it and you need to be real honest and you need to tell the kids the truth. So that is exactly what we did.
That's part of what creates their whole sense of self, and that's what lets them grieve the losses, and that's how they put together the pieces of the puzzle.
That was our turning point. That was our breakthrough moment with our kids, because they suddenly felt safe and we were talking about something that nobody else would talk to them about.
One of the things that impressed me greatly is what I learned from the other participants.
Devastated.
Devastated.
We learned from each other. Sometimes we consoled each other. I was feeling pretty alone in my world. No one else that I know, none of my friends had ever been through anything like this. So it was really helpful to be around other people who were dealing with similar things. The facilitators encouraged the participants to share and to be vulnerable and to open up. I mean, some of the things that we discussed were hard to discuss.
So tell me, what was the key points from this exercise? What did you guys take from it?
It made me realize for the first time what my granddaughters lost. They lost everything. It didn't really dawn on me they'd lost all of those relationships. And we also lost our grandparent-granddaughter relationship. I'm not the fun granny anymore. And they were always good at taking it and wrapping it into the curriculum so that we could see, oh, this is how this fits, and this is where we're going next. So they were really good at giving us that roadmap.
One of the key things is the idea of the homework that's given to parents. The homework we give them is tied directly to their relationship with their child and their child's behavior. And then they come back and we talk about how did that work for you and what was it like? And you know, what were the powerful experiences that folks had, and they share those. These homework assignments really get them to stop and think and to break patterns.
It's not always easy to do in the heat of battle or when people are upset. When you've got a screaming teenager, sometimes it's hard to fall back and think, okay, let's see, I need to decrease her stress, increase her pleasure. How can I do that in this moment? But at least those things were on my mind. One
of the blessings for us was we could go home, and when Lily or Noah would say something to me, I knew.
It was fresh.
Yeah, it was fresh in my mind. And it was fresh in his, because I would come home immediately after class and go over the entire lesson as I remembered it. And because their behaviors were so immediate to change, it just made us more excited every week. Okay, what are we going to learn?
When parents take something home, try it, and bring it back, and they have success or they have a change, it encourages them to feel like things can get better.
It kind of helped our relationship too. We became a stronger couple, a more relaxed couple. And a closer family.
Everything started changing. Lily stopped having tantrums. Noah was not as aggressive. We weren't stressed out anymore. It wasn't a high stress situation. We were laughing more, and you know, there's a domino effect.
Push that. Harder. Let's see the chickens roll.
Yeah. It felt genuine. I was being the mom that I had always imagined that I would be.
I think we were about 3 or 4 sessions in when something happened with Morgan. She had a wreck. She had snuck out in the night and wrecked her car. And I thought she was upstairs asleep, and I get a call from her. And she's crying and upset. Granny, don't hate me, don't hate me. What, where are you? She was in an ambulance. She couldn't tell me where she was. She says, I need you to come hold me. And I said, I'm on my way. But I knew then that the push away was, I'm gonna go do something I know I'm not supposed to do. I'm my own person, and you can't really control me. I'm gonna go do something bad. But on the other hand, I've messed up, something horrible's happening, and I need you now. I don't want you to be upset with me. I need you to come hold me. That's what they were talking about. That's exactly what they were trying to tell us about the attachment. It comes and it goes. Sometimes things will be going along just fine, and next thing you know, there's a crisis, and that's exactly what happened that day.
We end our sessions with one word that you got out of the whole 7 sessions. And I get a lot of hopefuls.
Hopeful's how I pretty much sum up how I feel leaving the class.
Families use words like empowered, hopeful, grateful, educated, able to.
All right, what was the highlight of your day?
To describe their experience with this. It is extremely powerful for them in what it's changing, and we are excited to bring it to them.
They will even tell you, I'm going to adopt kids when I get older. I can't wait to see how big our family tree grows.